Let's make history. The neighborhood of Greenpoint is the northernmost neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. The area was originally settled by the Lenape peoples, who were the first original settlers and indigenous people of the northeastern United States before the arrival of Europeans. And Greenpoint got its name from sailors constantly passing it, and it literally looked like a green point. When the Dutch ran things in New York and it was New Amsterdam, Greenpoint was a village in the town of Bushwick, or as the Dutch called it, Boswick. It has a jagged border on the south. That's North 12th Street and Manhattan Avenue, and in between those two is McCarran Park. So like when you're in Brooklyn, once you get to McCarran Park, on the other side of McCarran Park, that's where Greenpoint begins. By the way, on a side note, right on the borderline of Williamsburg and Greenpoint, right over there near McCarran Park, there is a restaurant called the Bedford that made the best mac and cheeseburger I've ever had. They basically took some baked mac and cheese, fried it into a patty, and used those as the bun for the burger. Thank me later. In Brooklyn, there's a street called Humboldt Street, and it begins right there in Williamsburg, right there by Bushwick Projects. It bisects Greenpoint into two halves, and it actually becomes the Pulaski Bridge, because Greenpoint has a natural northern border, and that's Newton's Creek. That's what separates, partially anyway, Queens from Brooklyn. Then when it gets to Queens, it becomes simply 11th Street. And at that point, a couple blocks up and you're in Queensbridge. It was pretty much Dutch English with some French, an influx of Eastern European immigrants, primarily from Poland. And since back then, it earned the name Little Poland. It's basically a Polish enclave. Some of the best Polish restaurants in the city you'll find there in Greenpoint to this day. But that began in the late 1800s. Mid-1900s, there was a decline, I guess, as manufacturing left the United States, but it got a rebirth in the early 2000s, late 90s, when gentrification hit, and Williamsburg is one of the most gentrified neighborhoods out of them all. It got a rebirth then because it's on the borderline of Williamsburg, so a lot of that gentrification spread up into Greenpoint.